Hey guys, Magnus here, and I gotta make sure I've got the microphone on. I did. Anyway, Magnus here, and are you a 5D owner? Do you have the 5D Mark IV and are considering the R5? If you've considered the R5 and have been hesitant because of all these overheating issues, are they really justified and is it really worth getting? Well, if you're into videos specifically with your Canon camera like the 5D or the R5, then definitely consider subscribing because I'm about to talk to you about the upgrading the 5D to the R5 for video purposes. Right now I'm actually setting up a video in the dark, but I'm going to brighten it up, of course. I've got a tripod, I've got the R5, and I'm holding the 5D Mark IV and recording in 4K right now. But I need to get all the other stuff. So let's talk. So in 2016, the 5D Mark IV was released. And that year was thought to be, the next 5D was going to be the next greatest thing. It was going to have all the features that we wanted, including 4K and then some. And it's a full frame camera, so you thought full frame 4K, that'll be awesome. But the biggest disappointment was the fact that the 4K was recorded in an MJPEG codec. And if you don't know what MJPEG is, it's like a video codec of the 90s. It's like pretty much what your PlayStation used to record videos on when it would play back full motion rendered scenes in the game. So that's what it was, and it was pretty archaic. So having these features, but Canon touting them that they were the greatest, hindered the camera. But wait, there were more glitches. That's right. I said there were more glitches. And what that is basically is the fact that when you wanted to record slow motion at 120 frames per second, which again was standard on a lot of these cameras out there, it had to be in 720p with no autofocus or audio. Didn't make much sense. But people bought it anyway. Photographers bought it, and it was a great photography camera. 5D series is revolutionary with that. But after a while, a lot of people, there were a lot of naysayers, the 5D became a workhorse camera. Heck, even for myself, I have the NX1, which NX1 didn't have a lot of those limitations. Though it was a smaller sensor, the 4K was still recorded with less of a crop on the Samsung than the 5D. But after a while, the autofocus on the 5D, the quality of the video, and I was able to purchase cards that were SD cards and fast enough to record 4K, as well as on the CF card slot as well. So I had a good amount of space and I could record hours of 4K internally on the 5D and then transcode it if necessary. But I could edit videos off MJPEG pretty well. And over the years, it became my main go-to camera for vlogging, that alongside the NX1, which was awesome. So now that I've talked up the 5D, I'm sure I'm not the only one who enjoyed the 5D Mark IV for all of its capabilities. But the 5D Mark IV now is over 4 years old. And when the EOS R came out, a lot of the features for video, besides the dreaded codec, they thankfully improved it. Still a fat codec at 470 megabits per second when you record all I, but they gave you a lower bitrate option and it at least was a little bit more efficient. So you're considering the R5. R5 is the true successor to the 5D. Like I was saying, the R doesn't have a lot of those features that the 5D has. Like it didn't have dual card slots. It wasn't as rugged as we would like. And that touch bar was a little bit weird. It seemed to be a bit lacking for the most part for a true successor. And it still had that 1.74 times crop in video. So we wanted something of an improvement rather than a lateral movement or a slight degrade in video features, especially if you're in the 5D series to get great video features. But what's the talk now? Before, the talk was all the lacking 4K specs and the lacking HD specs. But the drama continues. And whoa, bright here. And the continuing drama has everything to do with the fact that the camera overheats. So it almost makes you wonder, why go for it? Why use this camera in a professional setting? I've got it set it up right here with like a light. It might be too bright, but I got the microphone right in front of me, and I'm just going to talk like this to finish this video, which is for you guys. Here are the features that are discussed that are considered, Canon messed up again. 4K HQ at 30p, 4K 60, 4K 120, and 8K all overheat. Not only that, the overheating seems to be almost like Canon purposely did it. And when people have figured out workarounds for the camera, but if you want a camera, you want it to just work, not worrying about is it going to overheat. So is it really an improvement for the 5D? Especially your workflow, because if you've been working with the 5D, you've been working with its limitations, but created some stunning content. Well, here's where I'm going to brighten your mood. So 5D, what are the 5D's features? Not looking at the 5D Mark IV's limitation, but what are the features? HD 120 frames per second if you want it. 60 frames per second in 1080p if you want it. Full frame. A cropped, but a very usable, like I'm using it now, highly detailed 4K image that you can rely on and pull still frames from during recording video. Those features have enabled you to film weddings, they've enabled you to film events, they've enabled you to film great looking content and not worry about a lot of things. Sure, there were limitations, but you've at least had great autofocus, great image quality. And let's be honest here, you've been able to pull quite an amazing story with the 5D. So the R5, let's talk about what you can do with the R5. Right on the cover. All right, no impressive spinning trick here. So talking about what you can do on the R5. The R5, you can record full frame 4K with no worry about overheating, depending on the mode, but no worry about overheating. You can record extra high quality downsampled 8K from 4K. You could record short bursts of 4K 120. You can record short bursts of 8K, but enough to where when you want to get that, you can. But there's no limit on 4K recording in standard frame rates, and it's full frame, something that you never had before. So don't worry about overheating. The R5 does not overheat. What else do you have? You've got 1080p at 60 frames per second. So yes, that's a ladder move. It's the same, but the quality of the 1080p is a higher bit rate than it was on the 5D. So you're going to get great looking footage. And on top of that, the 5D had the ability to record Canon log. And if you recorded in 4K on the 5D, you had 8-bit 422. Not only on Canon log, but on all modes. Sadly, the R5 loses the ability to have 422 in whatever profile you choose. So you just have 8-bit 420, whereas the 5D had 8-bit 422 when you recorded 4K in whatever profile. But the added advantage is that when you record Canon log, you get 10-bit 422 in all video recording formats. So down from 1080p all the way up to 4K, 120, or 8K. So you've got all of that, and then the extra added features that I mentioned before of all the high frame rate 4K modes and the 8K, and you've got a camera that you can really rely on. And for long-winded events where you're recording for a long time, this limits you in no way additionally when compared to the 5D Mark IV. Sure, the 5D Mark IV never overheat, but you were recording your slow-mo in 1080p at 60 frames per second or in 120 frames per second in 720p. And you were recording 4K up to 30p with no overheating. The R5 gives you most of that. What the R5 doesn't give you is 120 frames per second in 720p. A future firmware update has been talked about where you will get 120 frames per second in 1080p, but it's not out yet, so I'm talking about today. So yeah, you lose that 720p, but whatever, good riddance. You have the ability to do it 4K 120, yes, with limits, but if you work with 1080p at 60 frames per second and 4K, it's kind of similar to what you were getting with the 5D Mark IV, but with added tastes of increased bonus features such as 4K 120, 4K 60, and 8K. So with that, you're getting something that you didn't have before, and you don't have to worry about overheating if you're used to the 5D's workflow. So you're pretty much upgraded in this point. And when you actually enable those other shooting modes, the ones that you're limited, you get amazing high resolution, high quality footage that you've pretty much, it's almost impossible to get. On top of that, you get an excellent photography camera that is really a class in itself. That's my personal experience. And yes, I'm recording off of the EOS R5, but I was recording most of this video on the 5D Mark IV. And one of the added benefits I didn't mention is that the EOS R5 has image stabilization built in the body. So IBIS, in-body image stabilization. So you can carry it handheld and not do a bad job when it comes to having non-shaky footage. And of course, it works well with taking pictures. This is the rig I had to carry with the 5D just to be able to keep my footage steady, which is what you saw and why it was spinning so much, because this has a spinning feature. But that's what I liked. Anyway, those are my comments. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below as to, would you upgrade your 5D from a video perspective to the R5? Or did you move over and get the A7S III? Me personally, A7S III didn't hit all my requirements, which was a great photography upgrade as well as awesome video features. And the R5, I've already used it professionally a couple times, and it has far exceeded my expectations. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Like, share, and you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. This bad boy doesn't have to retire. It's just a second camera at this point. See you later.